Man, I love dictatorships. No, not you, or you, or you. Belarus, what are you doing here? Welcome to Belarus, one of the youngest and most mysterious countries on Earth. It's a landlocked country in Eastern Europe that hasn't existed for very long. In the past, Belarus was under the control of the Russian Empire and the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth. In the 1800s, nationalist Belarusians began to develop a national identity, including a language that is a mixture of both Polish and Russian. After years of being divided between different countries, Belarus became part of the USSR in 1922. In 1939, World War II broke out and Nazi Germany invaded the Soviet Union in Operation Barbarossa. Belarus was going to take a big toll. During the war, the Nazis perpetrated war crimes and massacres in the country. 1 in 4 Belarusians were killed during the war. When the dust settled, over 3 million Belarusians had been killed. After the war, captured Germans were forced to rebuild the cities which they had destroyed. Many of the buildings in the capital city, Minsk, and major cities like Brest were constructed during this time. Everything seemed pretty good, and then on April 26, 1986, an explosion blasted through reactor number 4 of the Chernobyl nuclear plant in Ukraine, sending massive amounts of radioactive dust into the air. The world was put on notice, but Belarus would suffer the most. That night, the winds had blown north, sending 70% of the nuclear material into Belarus, severely contaminating a fifth of the country's land area, leaving the southeastern part of the country to be evacuated and abandoned ever since. But hey, not everything was bad in Belarus. They were one of the most dominant Soviet republics, growing their economy and infrastructure while also being able to obtain a seat in the United Nations, even while they were still a part of the Soviet Union. But in 1991, the Soviet Union collapsed, and for the first time ever, Belarus was a free country. Well, not free, since the country's been ruled by only one man since 1994, Alexander Lukashenko. Since Belarus has only had one president, that means that more presidents of Israel were born in Belarus than actual presidents of Belarus. And President Lukashenko runs a country where the government controls almost every aspect of life. As a socialist state, the government owns most major companies and provides most major services, and employs around half of Belarusians. Well, it's not that hard to find a job in Belarus. The unemployment rate is under 1%, since not having a job is illegal. And a lot of other things are illegal in Belarus, like drinking outside. But Belarus has the lowest crime rate in all of Europe, probably because their punishments are super severe. Another thing that's illegal in Belarus is opposition to the government. Opposition leaders are usually silenced, jailed, or exiled, and Lukashenko usually wins his elections with around 90% of the vote. Well, it sounds like he's super popular in his own country, but Lukashenko's best friends are actually in Russia. Belarus and Russia are technically the same country, as they agreed to form a union in 1999. Since then, Belarus has been a strong ally of Russia, backing them in European and global conflicts like the Russian-Ukraine war. Belarus has sent thousands of soldiers to fight Ukraine in the south. But Belarus and Russia have had their tensions, such as the 2006 Milk War, which was a trade war over Russia's invasion of Georgia. Generally, Belarus sides with Russia and avoids regional organizations like NATO and the EU. Even though Belarus just might be a dictatorship, it's got some things going for it. It has a large urban population living in Soviet-styled cities, a well-off economy, and a strong infrastructure network. Most people living in Belarus identify themselves as Belarusians, but only a small handful actually speak the language. They mostly speak Russian, Lithuanian, or Polish. But make sure you don't call them Russians. They are Belarusian. Belarusians are great people who make great food, like potato pancakes, and always pairing it with alcohol, something that they consume a lot. While the US Department of State advises that you don't travel to Belarus, maybe you could give it a try. Don't sue me if you get detained and arrested and never come back. Hey, if you learned something new about Belarus, make sure to let everyone know by leaving a comment down below. If you've made it to the end of this video and you haven't already, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for the next video on the yummy chocolate of Belgium.